Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we are talking about good sports for you. And today we are in another playoff preview and a little bit of playoff review because this team has already played a game. That's right, we are talking about your Detroit Tigers, the first team to have won a game during this playoffs, and let's see if they can keep it going. But before we hop into the video, I want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that you want to do. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about the things that I like about this team. I'm going to talk about the things that are okay, and then I'm going to talk about the things that are bad about this team. I'm going to give a gut reaction at first without really knowing much, and then I'm going to give my final reactions, thoughts, and predictions. So my initial gut reaction with this team is they are just kind of there. I know that Tarik Skubal is arguably the best pitcher in the entire league, like at least top 3 bare minimum. He's incredible and he'll go out and win you games, which is exactly what happened in game 1 of the playoffs. And after that, I don't really know how to feel about this team. I don't expect them to make any noise at all, maybe make it past the first round, but that's just like my initial feeling. So let's actually hop into it, okay? So to start off with the good, I don't have anything in the good column. I'll be 100% honest with you. There's nothing that I was like, okay, this is objectively good. Is this a little bit of an artistic choice so the okay category can pack more of a punch? Yes. But again, there's nothing that I was like, oh wow, this needs to be marked as good. So moving on to the okay category, everything about this Tigers team is just okay. To start off with the pitching, they're 16th in team ERA. They're 13th in WHIP. They're 12th in opponent batting average. They're 15th in strikeout per 9. They're 10th in walk per 9, and they're 8th in strikeout to walk ratio, and they're 17th in home runs allowed. So basically everything that can be mediocre about a pitching staff is mediocre about this team. There is like the only thing that they have kind of going for them is that their strikeout to walk ratio is at least in the top 10 of the league. But aside from that, they don't have a single thing that's top 10. I guess walks per 9 is 10th, but they don't have a single thing that's single digit, I should say, outside of strikeout to walk ratio. I don't know how you're going to get that done in the playoffs when your team is like pitching-wise is mid. Especially I was surprised by this because Tarik Skubal is so good that I would expect those numbers to be above average just because he's pitching every 5th day. And I know that he's going out there and chucking. He's not going to be a starter who's like, oh, I'm only going to pitch 5 incredible innings. He's going to give you 7. Like he showed in the playoffs the other day. When you're looking at the batting side of things, it's even more mid. 11th in runs scored, 15th in walks, 10th in home runs, 16th in batting average, 14th in on-base percentage, 11th in slugging, which rounds out to 12th in OPS. They're just mid across the board. I don't get it. And it's obvious why this team fell off in September so much. It's because they have nothing to rely on. They don't have anything that they can say, okay, well, we know that if our pitching isn't doing well, we know that our hitting can pick up the slack, or vice versa. We know if our hitting isn't doing well, we know that our pitching can pick up the slack, or even the things on the margins that I love to talk about, like fielding and stolen bases and base running runs. They're only okay in all that stuff too, which let's hop into that right now. They're 8th in base running runs, they're 15th in fielding run value, and they're 9th in outs above average. So the whole entire time they don't have an identity, which is my main concern. I would rather have a team say, you know what, we're gonna hit a lot of home runs, but we know we're gonna strike out a lot. That's who we are as a team. Or you could say, you know what, we're not gonna strike out a lot. We're gonna hit for a really high average, but with that being said, we're not gonna hit for a ton of home runs. This team doesn't have any of that. And I don't think that pays off in the playoffs at all, quite frankly. I think you could make the argument, well, they're not really bad at anything. Yeah, but they're not good at anything. They're not a true elite team in any side of the ball, which it's frustrating because it's not going to do anything in the playoffs. And they won their one game against the Guardians, which is great, but they won it because your starting pitcher is one of the best starting pitchers of the generation. It's not because your team performed well. It just isn't. So, okay, I'm getting worked up over this Tigers team that I really should not be getting as worked up about. Anyway, let's move on to the bad. The thing is, they're not bad at a ton of things either. They strike out the 5th most of any team. That's way too high, obviously. And then the other thing is they're last in stolen bases. It's a thing. I've emphasized this in all my videos. Stolen bases are how you clean up around the edges. And if you're not stealing bases well, like, I don't think you're going to be successful. So I was honestly surprised that their base running runs was above average because they don't steal bases. But I was looking at it and they take the extra base a lot, which I think is really good. But you want those stolen bases to be higher. Obviously, again, it's just another thing. If your entire team is mid, you can't have things that you're bad at and they strike out so much. And I mean, and when you look at the lineup, it's just like strikeouts, 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 strikeouts. I mean, it's just frustrating. This is a frustrating team to pay attention to. And I mean, I'm glad they won game 1, but I mean, we'll see what happens. And I mean, like I said, their September downfall is not surprising at all. But anyway, let's take a look at the lineup. Over at catcher, you have Dylan Dingler, who's had a really nice season. He's put up 3.1 WAR, so shout out to him. You know, I was not expecting that season out of Dylan Dingler, personally. Over at first base, you have Spencer Torkelson, who's had a really nice bounce-back season after he struggled last year. Former first overall pick out of Arizona State University. He's had a 30 home run campaign, which has led to an OPS plus of 117. I'm really happy for him because it is a real bummer when you have a first overall pick who hasn't lived up to the hype. And I think a lot of people would say that he hasn't lived up to the hype. So hopefully in the playoffs, he can turn it up even more. At second base, you have Gleyber Torres, who's also had a really nice season. OPS plus wise, he's had a 108 OPS plus, although I will say he has definitely slowed down in September specifically. I mean, along with the whole entire team, so I mean, that doesn't really matter. But he has a 631 OPS in September, so that's definitely something to keep an eye on. At third base, you have Zach McKinstry. Shout out Zach McKinstry because he can play a little bit of everywhere, but he's put together a really nice season with a 113 OPS plus. And for somebody to hit that well and also be able to play a ton of different positions, you absolutely love that. At shortstop, you've had Trey Sweeney and Javi Baez. Trey Sweeney got the majority of starts for the season, but it looks like Javi Baez is going to be taking over the shortstops, at least for the wild card series, potentially for all of the playoffs. Trey Sweeney was really bad this year. He had a 53 OPS plus, that negative WAR that just isn't going to cut it in the playoffs. Javi Baez, interesting case. He started off so hot, but he has cooled down like exponentially. In September, he had an OPS of 548, just not going to cut it, and he's back up to his old tricks. His walk to strikeout ratio is abysmal. He had 10 walks to 109 strikeouts. That is so frustrating. And it's like, man, you were doing so good and everyone was rooting for you, and you've fallen off, unfortunately, which is a real bummer. Over in left field, you have Riley Green. Riley Green, another guy who had a really nice season and as a whole, a 120 OPS plus, but in September he struggled again with his 618 OPS. In center field, you have Parker Meadows, and he's been not great. He has a 73 OPS plus. Over in right field, you have Enciel Perez, who's put together a decent season with a 103 OPS plus. At DH, you have Kerry Carpenter, who has a 114 OPS plus. And then when you're looking at the bench, the primary DH before was Colt Keith, and he was not able to play in this wild card series because he's been hurt, but he's coming back. Hopefully he'll be back in the divisional series, but he should be back soon, especially if the Tigers can make it any further. And then also if you have Zach McKinstry, like I mentioned before, he's put together a nice season and he adds a lot of that versatility. You also have Andy Ibanez, who can play a little bit everywhere too, which you love. And you also have Jahmai Jones, who's going to be one of your backup outfielders. And in a limited sample size, he's put together a 157 OPS plus. So you really like that coming off of the bench. When looking at this rotation, you have Tarik Skubal, who's going to be your 1-1. I mean, he's fantastic. He's one of the best pitchers of our generation. He's going to win his second Cy Young Award. He pitched so well in Game 1 versus Cleveland, and he'll probably continue that if they can make it further in the playoffs. But the one thing that's going to see if they can make it further in the playoffs is going to be the rest of their rotation, where you got Casey Mize, who's been decent. He's been rocking a 3.87 ERA for the season. And you have Jack Flaherty, who's definitely struggled this season with a 4.64 ERA. And also he leads the league in losses, which I just thought was kind of interesting for a pretty decent Tigers team, right? But I will say, like Jack Flaherty, he definitely has the arm talent to be better, but we'll see if he can harness that in the playoffs. And he's going to be their Game 3 starter if it goes to a Game 3, if the Guardians can push it there. And Casey Mize is going to be their Game 2 starter, which we already know. And then their fourth starter is going to be Kader Montero, who's been having a nice season. His ERA is around the mid-4s, but he's only started 12 games. So I think that that's a little bit of a concern. And the reason that this rotation isn't much deeper is because when you're looking at the IL, you have Reese Olson and Jackson Jobe, who are both like two young guys who have been both really solid for them. And so that's a huge knock on this team to have them both on the IL. When looking at this bullpen, it's just more mid. You have Tyler Holton, who has a 3.66 ERA. You have Tommy Kahnle, who who's rocking a mid-4s ERA. You got Will Vest, who's at 3.01. You have Brant Herter, who's at a 2.43. And then you have Rafael Montero, who in his time with the Tigers has a 2.86 ERA. But mind you, this is his third team this season, so I think that should tell you how the rest of his season has gone. So, it's just more things that are just kind of mediocre. What I will say, though, is that looking at the IL, they don't really have any relief pitchers of note that I thought were worth mentioning. So that is at least a solid. At least you have a healthy bullpen. This team is just mediocre across the board. They don't have anything that stands out. They don't have a star in the lineup. They do have a star pitcher in Tarik Skubal, but he can only pitch one every 5 days. So it's what can you do there? They don't have any true identity. They don't have one thing that they do particularly well. They don't have really any things that they do particularly bad. So what's your identity? Oh, we don't steal bases? Okay, cool, but you can't hit well, so that doesn't matter. You can't pitch well, so that doesn't matter. It's where's the purpose? Where's the identity, And I just don't see any team like that making it far in the playoffs. In addition, they were dreadful in September. They were so bad, they squandered a huge division lead to the Guardians, and now they're playing on the road against the Guardians. So, there's nothing very good about this team. So my two questions are, one, can they make it past the Guardians? And two, can they win a World Series? I definitely think they can make it past the Guardians because he won game one, honestly. Behind Tarik Skubal, he pitched so well. My concern is the offense just isn't very good. You were able to get lucky with the Guardians. Then again, the Guardians' offense is so bad that the hitting just needs to do the bare minimum for this team to succeed. And so hopefully they can do that, and hopefully Casey Mize and Jack Flaherty can have good performances. And the next question is, can they make it to the World Series? The answer is no, they cannot. If they somehow make it past the Guardians, you're going to lose to the Mariners. And if by some miracle they lose to the objectively better Mariners team who has an identity, they're going to lose to the Yankees, Red Sox, or Blue Jays, who are all objectively better teams with identities. This Tigers team doesn't do anything particularly well. They don't have anything to rest on. They don't have anything to build a foundation on. All they got is, we're okay at this, we're okay at that, and we're really, really bad at base stealing. That is not a formula to win a World Series at all. And honestly, I feel bad for the Tigers fans that they have this team that's, first of all, that squandered this division lead. They should be in the same position that the Mets are right now on the outside looking in because of how poorly they played in September. It's unacceptable, quite frankly. And like I said, I feel bad for the Tigers fans that they're even given a chance to think that they can make it to the World Series and win one, because they're not going to. The team is not going to make it past the second round if they somehow make it past the Guardians, which I even have doubts about that, which is just incredibly frustrating. But anyway, I'm sorry to the Tigers fans for knocking on you so much. But here's what I gotta say. I hope you enjoyed listening to me. I enjoyed talking to you. If you really think that this Tigers team can make it to the World Series, comment down below. I don't at all. The whole entire team is mediocre. I'm sorry, I had to be the bearer of bad news, but I had to say it. But that's what I got for you. Thank you for watching Good Sports View. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things, and I'm out.